All right, I think that this is going to be the winter where I'm wearing a lot of Nomad Cosmetics eyeshadow. If you saw my winter palette picks, I had two palettes in there, the Royal Europe and the Whistler Snow Lodge, and I gifted the Whistler Snow Lodge in my Livemas this year, so it's been a bit of a Nomad moment. And then I got this. This just came in the mail last night. I did receive this in PR from Nomad Cosmetics. I'm so excited. I'm so excited to touch this with you today. This is absolutely stunning. The New Zealand Stargazing palette. I tell you what, we're starting off 2024 with a bang. Now, I was really excited just from the beginning of the sneaks of this palette on Instagram, but let me tell you, she's just as pretty on the inside. Now, I did film some B-roll footage for you last night when this came. I actually saw my friend Stephen Ford got theirs and I ran out to my mailbox. I was like, put my snow boots on, and the snowstorm ran into my mailbox, and I was like, okay, I have to at least swatch these tonight. So I did swatch them, so I'll be showing you swatches later of these shades from last night, but I am going to show you the up close of this palette. It is absolutely stunning, and of course the color story. I'll just give you a little peek here before we get the up close swatches. Look at this. Now you will know that typically I am not an avid blue and purple wear, but in the last 6 months, I would say I've definitely been tiptoeing more into that. And whether or not I wear them a lot, I can absolutely appreciate this color story, and I'm very excited about it for a few reasons. And we'll get into that as we dive in. But to give you some of the details on the palette, this has 9 stellar mattes and 6 twinkling multichromes inspired by the out-of-this-world stargazing in New Zealand. And to give you a little bit of the vibe of this palette, the brand says, full of otherworldly landscapes and surrounded by intensely dark skies, New Zealand stargazing is a breathtaking, transcendent, and humbling experience. As night descends, the cosmos comes to life, displaying millions of shimmering stars so vivid you want to reach out and touch them. From the radiant southern lights to the spiraling Milky Way, this island country is the perfect place to feel a part of the greater universe and realize we are all made of star stuff. So I think that's absolutely beautiful. And I have to say, I really enjoy the back of this packaging. I don't know if you're gonna be able to see here, but they do have the, obviously the shades listed here, but can you see how the multichrome shades actually have that like multichrome vibe on the packaging? I think that that is so cool. Like, I just really love this. That's just a little taste of the palette that we're gonna be using today. I just wanted to celebrate all of its beauty right off the bat. But if we haven't met before, my name is Kelly and I'm a professional hair and makeup artist. And here on my channel, I strive to keep beauty real. Real honest, real relatable, and real fun. So if that sounds like something you'd enjoy, don't forget to click subscribe and hit that notification bell so you don't miss out on future videos. Now I plan on doing at least 2, but hopefully 3 looks in this video. It really just depends on how much time I have. Thank you so much to the brand for sending this out a bit in advance so that we could all play with it, create some looks for you to give you some inspo in case this is a color story that you're interested in. And this way it also gives me some time to get some thoughts on this and using the palette this week. So I was telling Steven, I was like, I know what I'm wearing on my eyes all week. So I'm definitely going to be giving you a full review by the end of this because this week I will make sure to use all of these shades. All right, we're going to get into this. Now again, this was sent by the brand. I don't know the pricing on it, but I'm going to assume since it's the same amount of multichromes as in Royal Europe, I think, I didn't actually look, but I think it's about the same. And this one is 57. I'm going to assume that this one is around 57. Should we look just right now? By the way, I will be giving you some comparison swatches. Yes, there's, oh no, we have 6 in here. So there's 1 more and there were 5 in the Royal Europe. Okay, so I would say it's probably gonna be in that $57, $59 range. And if I haven't finished editing this video by the time that the brand releases the details on this, I will make sure to have the price here. Otherwise, it'll be in a pinned comment for you. So thank you to the amazing people at Nomad for sending this palette my way to share with all of you. Now, I have purchased Nomad palettes in the past before I was added to PR. And as always, I will be keeping my true and honest thoughts in this video. And again, I really appreciate that I will be able to use this for a while before this video goes up. So also I do have a discount code with the brand. It is KEEPBEAUTYREAL. I am not receiving any commission off of that code, but it does save you some money. So feel free to use that. Now, I feel like this is a good time to show you the swatches that I did last night. I will be honest, I am not a glamorous swatcher. To me, it's all about how they perform on the eyes, but this will give you a little flavor as we get into this video. Enjoy. because my arm was so dead from all of the declutter swatching that I was doing, I wanted to give the Multichromes a little bit of time on their own. And you can see here, I personally feel like these all have a slightly more sheer base. Like I would say that these are almost like the Cleona Light, where they don't have a black base, they have more of a gray base if they have that deeper base at all. But these definitely have that signature little bit of extra flicker to them that the Nomad Cosmetics shimmers have. If you've had a Nomad palette, you will know what I mean, where there's like extra dimensional, teeny tiny shimmers within the eyeshadow that just really give it some flair. All right, like I said, the swatches are just a little flavor of what the palette is like. I am really hoping, in fact, I don't even remember. Okay, I did it on this arm last night when I was filming all of these declutter videos. I was swatching on my hands so much, like the back of my hands, on my arms, and then like cleaning them off. My skin was so angry. So I don't know how well the shadow picked up on my skin. So as we're going through, especially with these multi-chromes, I'll give you some finger swatches in case you want to see up close a little bit more. But again, it's really all about how they perform on the eyes. So I want to give some initial thoughts on this palette. I probably should have done that before I zoomed in, but she deserves a close-up, right? So the one thing that I'm really excited about in this palette, and I just talked about this in my winter palette picks and talking about Royal Europe, is while I love that delicious juicy color story, it doesn't have any variance, but not any, but it doesn't have enough for me variance in lights and darks. This, however, really does. So you have a couple really nice bright shades, you have some mid-tones, and then of course you have some beautiful rich jewel tones. And when I was talking to the brand when the Royal Europe palette came out, since I have this out, I'm actually just gonna pull this out, and I was like, wow, these mattes are like super silky, ultra amazing. And they said that they tweaked this formula just a little bit to be able to get this really rich jewel tone. So I would not be surprised if we see the same formula as this in some of these deeper shades, because with some of those like rich jewel tones, you really, they're tricky. I'm gonna be curious. I'm gonna put this palette to the test to see, because this palette right here, I did not find to be patchy at all. And I'm hoping to find that in these shades here. So where are we gonna go with this today? I'm not sure. I did the black so that we could really go in any direction. I have to say though, this headband, this is the first time I'm wearing it, maybe the second, but it is a head squeezer, so I might have regrets by the end of the day at the salon. I think a lot of people would right away maybe do this blue situation here, but I kind of want to change it up. I don't necessarily want to use the blue with the blue mattes. So I think I kind of want to like switch the color story around a little bit and create something that isn't just like more like super heavy blue, but really celebrates the blue in this palette. And we do have, I'm starting to get the hiccups, that's great timing. We do have two blues in here. We have the Takapo Stargazing. Oh, I should probably check the pronunciation on that. And then we have the Carter Observatory. So the Carter Observatory is this slightly more grungy navy, I would say, and then this is a little bit more of like a deep power blue. Okay, so without any further ado, let's go ahead and get started. To begin, I am going to throw a bit of concealer on my eyelids just to really get a nice blank canvas, and then lightly powder it with some translucent powder. Especially since we're going to be going in with these dark mattes, I like to have a little bit of translucent powder down just to really make the blending and blurring extra effortless. It's an early morning. I could use some extra effortless vibe. I'll be right back. Okay, as I am just finishing up the concealer lay down, I just want to say, if you are new to my channel, concealer is what I wear under my eye makeup. Well, I used to say 90% of the time, but now that I have the Prelusion base from Divina Cosmetics, I would say it's maybe like 60–70% of the time, because I do use that one quite a bit. So I will probably do at least one look with more of like an eye primer down, and then maybe we'll do one of these shades with a glitter glue, but I have a feeling from touching them, I don't think it's going to be necessary. I'm using the Hourglass Veil Translucent Setting Powder, and then the concealer I used was the Oma Stay Woke, by the way. Just going through with some tried and true. Anytime I'm testing anything out, I try to keep all of the other variables, you know, consistent in products that I know that I really like. I'm going to start out by mapping the shape that I want with this shade Southern Lights. I am really just looking to sort of get an outline of the look that I want. I am going to go through with that blue next, but I don't really want to start with the blue because that can kind of like get going a little too quickly and easily. So I really just want to use something that I can like really, you know, define a shape first, and then we can go through. And when I was swatching, like I said, when I was swatching these shades, I was like, you know, gosh, like there are a couple shades in this palette, honestly, that are quite light. Like the bottom row of mattes, I don't know how those will perform on really deep skin just because they are really light. But then you do have some nice midtones, and then you have those deeper tones. So I think that there is a really good amount of options in this palette. I think that they did a great job. Like so far, I mean, just from swatching, I am really impressed with just the variance of the depth of color that's in this palette. And I think it's really necessary, at least for me, not only in the aesthetics of how I like it, but the way to create the most beautiful blurred blended look is to have some of those lights and darks to be able to work with. Also, I feel like I sound like I smoked like 74 packs of cigarettes this morning. Obviously it's just early morning and I haven't really done a lot of talking yet, so sorry about the gruff voice. Oh, and by the way, I'm using the Blend Bunny B5 brush for this. And you know, I have a feeling with this formula, I probably will have to see with these darker ones, because I noticed that the brighter, deeper shades have a little bit of a softer powdery feel, so they might have a little bit of fallout. But also, in case I really wanted to like clean up my eye shape, I wanted to have the option to not be messing up my complexion, so I decided to just wait on that. On the same brush, I'm going to take Queenstown Skyline, and I'm just going to buff out the edges right where that pink ends. Now, because I did lay down this pink shade, as we put the blue over the top, it may get just a little bit blurpily, but I have a feeling the pigment is so intense on this, and I just did such a light wash of that pink. I think we should be fine, and honestly, I'm fine either way. So now, I just did my brush declutter, and everything is so nice and organized, and I'm so excited. So now we're gonna go through. I'm going to take the Larifay E12 pretty small blending brush, and I'm just gonna dip into that Tekapo. Okay, it's either Tekapo or Tekapo. Sorry for all of my New Zealand watchers. I know that I actually have a few from New Zealand. I'm probably butchering this, but anyway, we're gonna go into this shade, and at first I am just going to go below where I feel like I'm gonna want it to end, and I'm just going to kind of stamp this in first to get some of that product off so that I can avoid some of the fallout, and then we'll go ahead and start buffing this in. This is a strong one. It's a strong one, but not patchy at all so far. Not at all. I think it does help, again, those little tricks that I used to lay down. So I'm gonna keep the shape a little sharp like this for right now. I'm gonna do this one just to make sure that they're even, and then I'm gonna go back through with that Blend Bunny brush to just smooth out the edges. All right, so now I feel like these shapes are similar. I find that I like to lay down the shape on both sides, get them somewhat even, and then blend out. Because sometimes if I build and blend this side out, I really don't even remember how I got there on this side. So it just makes it easier for me. Now, I have to be honest. This blue is so bright, and up next to that pink, it's just a little too much cotton candy vibes for me. It's pretty, but it's just a little too much. Even, I mean, I know once I blend it out, it still will kind of be. So I think I'm going to actually add this Tongariro Night Hike onto my brush as I blend out this edge, just to sort of like neutralize that just a little bit more, grungify it a smidge. Okay, I just turned the light up just a smidge, but can you see how that keeps it just a little bit more dusky? It's still intensely blue, but at the edge it's just a little bit dusky. Fitting for, you know, some stargazing, I think. Okay. There we have that laid down. I still have just a hint of that pink there, which I actually really like. And the reason that I chose that shade was because I intend to go in with the Southern Cross shade, and I think that that is going to be just a nod. It's going to just give that little bit. So that's what we're going to do. I'm going to just wet a brush. So this is the shade Southern Cross. This is going to be what we put on our lids. If I tilt here, you can kind of see it's got that more, I would say, gray-based multichrome, and it's that purple to sort of amber and green shift to it. I don't necessarily think that any of the multichromes in here are a unique color per se, but they are very pretty. And the thing about these is they have a lot of little dimension. I'm probably too bright with this ring light right now for you to see the magic of this one. Yeah, my lights are just a little too bright and even right now, honestly, but once I get this look all done, I will make sure to have some footage at the end of each look so that you can see it up close. So now we're just gonna take this MAC 248 and get a good amount of product on, and I'm just gonna wet my brush with Fix Plus. And I plan to just take this just above my crease a little bit. And I do really like a soft wash, not like soft as in like sheer, but I want it to blend out into that crease color a little bit. I'm not really looking for like a cut crease situation, so I will blend it just a smidge. And by the way, in case you're wondering, these multichromes feel very, very smooth. They're not like chunky at all. They don't have like a sharp glittery feel. They also aren't smushy. If you were like me and you don't love that smushy texture, you don't have to worry about that here. I don't like that because I just find that it creases on my hooded lids. And if I'm gonna put all the work into doing an eyeshadow look, I want it to stay. Yeah, that's pretty. And then I just feel like that pink kind of draws that in a little bit. I'm gonna let this dry since I did wet my brush. I'm gonna do this eye and then I'll just buff the edge a bit. The multichrome is a little bit blended, but still very defined. So I colored outside the lines a little bit, and what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna take the Nomad Air, the face cream. I'm just gonna put a little bit of this on a Q-tip. I am suffering from such dry skin right now, so if I use like Bioderma on my micellar water, it takes off any of the skincare that I've had on, right? So I'm just gonna actually take this, and I'm going to use this Q-tip that has a little bit of that moisturizer on it to help whisk away what I have underneath my eye. And then my under eye will still stay hydrated, because let me tell you, it's been a chore to try to keep my under eye hydrated. I've actually been keeping this moisturizer in here. I do like it. It's just, you know, a nice basic moisturizer, and so I've been keeping this in here for this purpose. And then also, if there's a day where I'm just like in a rush and I want to throw on something that I know that's gonna just be a nice hydrator, lay under makeup well, I've got one in here, especially on days like today. Jeremy was out for like 12 hours doing snow removal until like 4 o'clock this morning, so I don't exactly want to have to be running through our bedroom into my bathroom to be able to grab skincare. So there we are. Okay, so I'm gonna go and finish up the rest of this makeup. I'll share little bits of what I'm wearing with you when I come back, but obviously we're all here for the eyeshadow. All right, I'm back and feeling a bit more balanced with some face product on. I honestly just really quickly went through and used a few things that I was sort of like testing in my declutter, or things that I was like, I probably don't need this, but I want to just say goodbye to it. This is not one of those, by the way. This I love. This is the Tinted Hydrator from Wet n Wild. That's what I have on for my foundation. And since I had pulled out the Oma, I just used that as well under my eyes. So then I have this ColourPop blush. This is one of the ones from the Kathleen Lights Club many moons ago. And I was like, I probably don't need to keep it. I probably have some things like it. It is awfully pretty. It is awfully pretty. So that's what I have on. I think this one is called I Need Space, actually, along with the Tom Ford Terra Bronzer. It's funny, ColourPop and Tom Ford, but you know, you got to keep it balanced. And then on my cheeks, I was deciding between these two products. I have the Nabla Skin Glazing in Privilege and this Master Chrome by Maybelline. They're both really pretty, but the Master Chrome is quite chromy. I have a mix of both on because I did one on one cheek, one on the other, decided, and then just like put a little of both on. So I'm actually going to keep the Nabla. I actually thought I was going to keep this one because the texture on my finger felt better, but the texture on my face looks better with this one. And let's face it, that's what matters. So later, when you see that declutter, because I'm sure that that's going to be coming after this, you will you will get to know which one I ended up getting rid of. All right, did my brows too, just really quick. And now we're going to finish this eye look. So I think I'm just going to do something fairly soft and blurry because I don't want anything too intense. I feel like it's a lot as is. Oh, by the way, I did also put this Patrick Ta Major Volume Plumping Gloss. Does this have a shade? I'm not sure if this is the shade. I think it says 200 or 2 o'clock. I think what it's saying is, Kelly, you might need reading glasses. 2 cc's. 2 cc's. It says 2 cc's. Okay, let's grab a little pencil brush now that I am all teary. You know what? I think I'm just going to take that Tongariro, put that under the lash line just for a bit of something soft. Yeah, just simple. It almost really just looks like my lashes are thick enough to cast a shadow under my lash line, and I'm fine with that. I just wanted something a little bit soft. So I think for a highlight, I am going to try popping down this Aurora Australis shade. That's this one here. Focus, there we go. And by the way, that's like a very light swatch on my finger. Ugh, hair color stains under the nails. This actually reminds me a little bit of a shade in one of my Odin's Eye palettes. Not quite the same. It also, I feel like I have a Divina shade that is like this. Like I said, I don't necessarily think that any of the multi-chromes in here are unique. I mean, truly, at this point, I feel like, you know, brands are gonna have to hustle extra hard to make quote unquote unique multi-chromes because there's only so many pigments. So, you know, it's getting to be a struggle, I think. And I'm going to lay this on the inner corner and then just kind of blend it up. I do sort of regret popping that blue matte so far onto my inner corner. So I think I'm going to kind of cover that up with this just to sort of keep the look a bit more open. Okay, yeah, see, I feel like taking that dark blue from this part here just kind of helped to keep the eye look a bit brighter. It's so gray out today. Maybe that's just, it's just my vibe of kind of wanting to keep everything a bit brighter and lighter. All right, yeah, that looks better to me. Lighter, brighter, mascara, and a close-up. Good morning. Please excuse the slightly damp hair. I just got a shower a little while ago and I'm like, all right, it's time for makeup and my hair will dry as we're sitting here. So today I am going to try to do something a little bit more light. I don't want to go quite as far as to say ethereal, but I think I'm going to try to combine a little smoky liner moment with just a sheer shadow. So I think today we're going to be focusing on this Magellanic Clouds, and I think I'm going to use that Carter Observatory. Blue 2 days in a row. Who knew? I'm just going to overlay some music over this, speed it up a bit. You'll get the gist, and I will give you my thoughts at the end of each of these other 2 looks. Hope you enjoy. Oh, before the music, I did want to say I just went through with concealer again today. Tomorrow I'm going to use an eye primer just to see how that works with these eyeshadows. Today I just used the Haus Labs Triclone concealer in light golden. So I just put a quick wash of that on because I am going to be doing something that's fairly light. I wanted a little bit of coverage over my lid. All right, I absolutely love this combination so much. It's different than what I thought it was going to be, but I absolutely love it. I have to say, let me just say, as I am getting older, it is getting to be more of a struggle to do a more like winged liner shape. So I usually do like to do a bit smokier look because the fold on this side is more foldy than this side. And so I really do have to do a more blurry look like this. And I think with topping it with a little bit of shimmer, it sort of hides any discrepancies, not any, but some, you know, so it doesn't have to be quite so perfect. So I do just want to say, because this was just like quickly sped through, I did a very similar look to this when I did my winged liner for hooded eyes. I think it was using a Sydney Grace palette, but I will make sure to have that video linked down below if you do want to see usually how I go about doing this. I think I showed like 2 different winged options. Anyway, so I will say, and I remember this now from doing the swatches, but the Carter Observatory shade, this really is more of a blurple. It definitely is a purple, or like almost like an indigo, you know, where it's like a purple with a bit of that blue, because I first used that this ancient Stila liner just to really get like a little bit of a base to start smudging out. But then when I went over with this eyeshadow, I was like, oh, this is basically purple. It's just basically a deep blurple. And I was kind of wanting something a little bit more navy, but this actually works really well because the base color of this Magellanic Clouds, by the way, I will give you a little up close of this shade here, if it will focus for us today. There we go. So the base of this, you can see here, it almost has that kind of purpley, cool tone with that shimmer over the top. And when I used this, I did it on a fluffier brush. I was using the BK 203 and I did not wet it, so it's just dry. So I just kind of like tapped it over as opposed to like swiping it so that I didn't move the purple, I'm gonna call it a purple, underneath. And I kept it a little bit heavier at the front as far as like the amount of saturation of eyeshadow, and then just sort of like dusted it over the edges. I just absolutely love this. I absolutely love this. Just to give you a quick rundown of what else I have on my face, I use the Nars Light Reflecting Foundation with a little bit of moisturizer in to sheer it out. The lip is the Fat Oil Slick Click from NYX. This is that sort of like charcoal-y shade, Trending Topic. Really love this one. And for blush, good old Milani Luminoso, y'all. Thanks to my blush declutter, I sort of pulled that one out and I think it looks good. I wanted to keep the rest of everything pretty soft since the shape of the eye got pretty dramatic. I think it is still fairly light, you know, especially because when you turn, you don't see the starkness of the deeper shade. I really like this. I'll give you the close-up.
Take me to the stars and the moon. My mind's out of balance. Heartbeats irregular. Kinda thought we'd work it through. Light speed, tears streaming down. I'm here, but already moving on. You care, then you kill it better. It's never gonna feel right. Maybe it's a matter of time. Maybe it's a matter of time. Maybe it's a matter of time. Funny are the times we've had. Always made me feel kinda blue. I know, you know. It all feels so good from a distance.
All right, here we have the third and final look using the New Zealand Stargazing palette. I really like this. I will say the pink is serving some serious pink. Like, I feel like it looks a little bit more, just a bit deeper and mauvier in the pan. But once I put it on, it was like super, super bright. Now that could be because I had put on the Prelusion base. By the way, hold on, we're gonna go into that right now. So I did decide today to use the Prelusion base before I put on the mattes, and then I also used the Specular Shimmer Glue before I put on the Multichrome. Now, mostly this was just experimentation because I wanted to try several different bases for you all, just depending on how you like to wear your makeup. The other reason though is the look that I wore yesterday, the one with the winged eyeliner, that creased. The Multichrome creased, I would say, a couple hours into wearing. It wasn't too bad, like it was just enough that I could actually, because that was such a like light look, I was able to just sort of like bring some friends back to the party with my finger. But I was sort of surprised because the first look that I did that night at like 10 p.m., it was still going strong. There was no creasing. So I'm not quite sure if it was the concealer that I used, because I used the Haus Labs yesterday, which is quite emollient. So it could be that, but it could also just be that that Multichrome in particular gets a little creasy if you don't have, you know, something laid down first. So today I thought I would do all the things and we'll see how this lasts. So that is why I decided to go through with those bases, but I think that the look is just absolutely beautiful. So I'm really happy with that. Getting back to the pink in here. So I feel like if I wanted to grungify this a little bit more, going like dusting lightly over this look with the Tongariro Night Hike, probably still pronouncing that wrong. If I had just dusted that over this outer edge, it would have sort of grungified it a little bit more. So you do definitely have that option. But if you do like a bright pink, this is gorgeous. Also, speaking of bright, it is absolutely not bright in here. I have my lights on. They're lighting as much as they can, but it is so dark and dreary this morning. So it's time for the close-up on this look. And then I am going to give you my thoughts on this palette. I'll talk about who I think it's great for, maybe who needs to skip out on it. And then, as promised, I'm going to take some time to do some swatch comparisons at the end of this video. All right, lovelies, I hope you enjoyed those 3 looks. I know that I enjoyed getting to create them. I just realized, by the way, that I didn't give you an update on what I ended up finishing my face with. I don't even think I talked about complexion really through this whole thing, but today I'm wearing the MAC Studio Water Weight Foundation. I'm trying to get through this one. This is sort of like one of my goals, but it is a pretty good match for me this time of year, so I really like this. I just think it's such a nice, lightweight, slightly luminous skin finish foundation. I do really like that. And I used the same ColourPop blush that I used in the first look. I'm just like pinky flush, easy to use. And this Makeup Forever lipstick. This is the shade Jolly Blush in the Rouge Artist Shine On. This was a gift and I really like this formula. It's just a beautiful creamy satin lipstick with some ridiculously long packaging, but what are you gonna do? All right, so now let's talk a little bit about the New Zealand Stargazing palette. And I really tried hard to do 3 cohesive looks with a little bit of variety and try to use most of the shades in this palette. And I did. I think I missed 3. I missed 2 of the multichromes and then 1 matte. And you know, with a multichrome, especially if you're wanting to see the true glory of it, you really have to do it all over the lid. So stay tuned. I'll probably be popping another look or 2 on Instagram at some point, which by the way is Keep Beauty Real if you're not following me there. So my thoughts on this, I have to say this is exactly what I have come to know and love from Nomad. The mattes are super blendable, soft enough that they're, you know, really easy to put on the eye, but not so soft that they just dust away into nothing. The pigmentation was absolutely there. I think, you know, the deeper mattes that I used, no problems with. There was no patchiness, not even with the blue or that sort of more like blurple. So that's always appreciated. And I had a feeling that was going to be the way it was because I really appreciated those really intense tones in the Royal Europe palette and didn't have any problems there as well. Now the multichromes, I think that these are a beautiful formula. I think that they are a really nice thin consistency. They aren't dry, but they're also not that smushy, overly emollient feel. Now, if you missed my comments during this last look here, I did mention that I've sort of had some mixed experiences as far as longevity goes. The first look that I did, I mean, I probably could have woken up and that still would have looked good the next day. When I washed it off that night, it still looked amazing. The second look I did creased within a few hours, and that could be because of the concealer that I wore, because I used the Haus Labs Triclone concealer as my primer, and it is a very emollient concealer, whereas the Oma that I used the first day, the Stay Woke, is a good like mid-range. So today I have on the Prelusion Eye Base and also the Specular Glitter Glue from Divina Cosmetics, just because I wanted to see how this worked over a glitter glue, and then we'll also see how these work over a base. I think the one thing about that middle look is because the Multichrome wasn't over any type of matte, like I just put it over that set concealer, that could also have made a difference. For longevity's sake, I absolutely could have gone in with, you know, this more like close to my skin tone shade and dusted down a matte first and then put the Multichrome over it, or honestly maybe just put more setting powder down. But in all honesty, it could be just that that Magellanic Clouds shade is a little bit slippier. So I will for sure, if I don't have time to edit it in here, I will definitely leave in a pinned comment down below how long this wore using the bases. Hi, this is Kelly from 6:30 at night, so roughly 10 to 11 hours after I was filming this look. We're looking good. We're looking good, y'all. We have almost no creasing, like just in the very depth of my fold. And honestly, I wouldn't even call it a crease. I'd call it a buffing away or like smudging away of product. It just is like slightly less product right there. I just had to update you. I'm really loving the longevity. I have a feeling it's gonna wear pretty well. So in general, who do I think that this palette is gonna be great for? I think that off the bat right away, you have to be ready for a cool color story. This is quite the cool color story. I think I even mentioned when I was doing the first look, this shade that seems to look like a little bit more of a warm pink still is quite pink on the skin. And obviously, I mean, I do have a more like warm olive skin tone, so it could just be contrasted to my skin. But I was like, oh, no, that's still pretty cool. And then this is really the only shade that has some warmth to it, and it is so light that you're just not gonna be able to build much warmth out of it. I think everybody knows that this is a cool color story, right? But that is just something to keep in mind when you're looking at this. It's like, okay, this is all cool tones. So if you're someone that likes to pretty much mix cools and warms together, or if you're looking for a bit more variety, this probably isn't the palette for you. Now, that being said, if you are a cool toned lover, this is gonna be right up your alley. And being someone, you know, myself, who cool tones aren't what I reach for most of the time, I actually love the looks that I got out of this palette. So if you're looking to maybe experiment a little with some cooler tones, this might be a good way to do it. I think one of the things that helps if you are someone that like you're sort of wanting to experiment with cooler tones is the fact that these multichromes, some of them have a nice warm shift. The one that I have on today, Carina Nebula, this does have that little bit of like almost olivey, ambery shift to it. And the Jewel Box shade, which is one of the multichromes that I didn't wear, this definitely, I mean, this is warm toned, absolutely. Sorry, my lights are turned up pretty high right now because it is, hopefully, I don't know if we're gonna see any sun today, but the sun isn't up yet. So then also the Magellanic Clouds has that beautiful warm shift, but the base of it is cooler. So you kind of get a good combination there. So that sort of brings some of that warm energy to the party, but you know, you're creating some primarily cool looks because the mattes are so cool. So I think that there is a good balance. And also, as I mentioned at the beginning of this video, I love the balance of lighter, mid, and deep tones within this, because I think that that's what really creates for me a beautiful balanced look. You're really able to build a beautiful eye shape, and it just gives you more variety. So I love the fact that we do have two shades that could really be used as a brighter inner corner. So that for me was super fun to be able to have. And I just think that this is high quality altogether. Now, one thing that I do want to mention, while I am glad, of course, to see some beautiful multichromes again from Nomad, and I really do like this formula, I think it's something that really performs well on my eyes. After using these shades, I really don't think that there's a shade in here that is like outstandingly unique. I know that I said that before, but it is nice to have a few all in one place with some remarkably performing mattes. So it's just sort of like a one and done, easy to grab palette. So it also just kind of depends. If you're the person where having that convenience is important to you, then you're really gonna love this. If you're someone who will pull out a palette and still pull out some other multichromes to use, you probably have some of the shades that are in here if it's a tonal story that you really like. So I'm just gonna throw in some swatches here at the end compared to some Nomad, and I'm also gonna kind of dig through my singles collection quickly to see if there's anything right off the bat that I'm like, oh, I think this is going to be somewhat similar. Now, if after the swatches and seeing these looks created, if you are inspired to pick up this palette, you can use my code KEEPBEAUTYREAL. Again, that is not affiliated in any way, but it saves you some cash. Thank you again to the brand for sending this over. Now, please enjoy this quick swatch comparison, and I will see you really soon. All right, here we have Magellanic Clouds on the top. And by the way, I will always have the one from the Stargazer palette on the top, but Magellanic Clouds, and then the shade underneath it is Phoenix from Terra Moons. And actually, I have really been loving Phoenix. I mean, this has been a top shade of mine for a while, but I've really been using this one a lot. And I think that these are very, very similar. I'm sure that a lot of other brands have a similar shade. I will say Phoenix is a little thicker and much more pigmented. Phoenix is a bit less transparent. There we go. That's what I'm gonna go with, which could be a pro or a con for you, depending. Okay, so here on the top, we have Aurora Australis. Now, I will say that, and obviously I've been doing quite a bit of finger swatching with this shade, but this one is the only one that I'm sort of feeling runs a little risk of getting hard pan if you use your fingers with it a lot. It just is starting to feel a little bit more pressed. These are not hard pressed. I haven't had hard pan in any of them. I know a lot of people after getting the Verona palette were a little concerned. These shadows are performing absolutely beautifully and nothing is hard pressed, but I'm just like, ooh, I could kind of see that. Anyway, the shade below is Divina Aylin. This is the one that right away I was like, oh, this is like Aylin. Sadly, you can't get Aylin anymore from Divina. There might be other brands that have this as well. So these two are pretty close. All right, here we have Southern Cross, of course, from Nomad on the top. And then the shade down on the bottom is Smolder Light. And that, of course, is from Cleona. I am not sure. Smolder might actually be a better match just because I feel like maybe the base would be a little bit deeper like Southern Cross's. I don't have Smolder, so this is the one that I chose. I do feel like the flip here, you get a little bit more amber from the Smolder Light, but that again just could be because the bases are a little bit different. I also here want to insert Southern Cross next to another Cleona shade. This is one of the dimensional multichromes. This is Solder. So that's S-O-L-D-E-R, by the way, Solder. These are probably more similar in tone than the Smolder shade is. Let me go ahead and just actually swatch this quickly down below. So I think that they're actually a little bit closer because they have a bit more of a similar shift, but Solder has more of that dimensional glitter in it. So I just needed to show all three. All right, we have Nomad Jewel Box on the top. The second one down is Centaurus from Divina. I do believe that it's a little bit deeper. Again, I feel like Jewel Box is a little bit more sheer and doesn't have quite as much of a base to it. The one I put down below is not a comparison necessarily. They aren't anything alike, but this one is Imperial Crown from the Royal Europe palette. So I just wanted to show the one that's sort of gold-ish compared to the one that's sort of gold-ish from this palette. All right, I feel like we almost have a dead ringer dupe here. Not quite, but the top one is Milky Way from Nomad, and the middle one is 347 from Divina Cosmetics, and then the bottom one is, just for comparison, that is the shade Bleu de France in the Royal Europe palette. Okay, these aren't quite the same because I feel like all of the dupes that I have a bit more of the green flip to them, but the top shade is the Carina Nebula shade, and then that next shade is Forge Light from Cleona, and then the next one down from that is the regular Forge formulation. You can see how that darker base just really brings out more of that green pop. And then, let's see, what did I do? I did Glam Shop, Pink Frog, and Divina Australis. Now on this hand, which by the way is very dry, which is why it looks really dusty, but these are actually the two from Nomad. So the top one is Royal Treasure, and that one is the one from Royal Europe, and then the one below that is Carina Nebula. So they are very close, which I'm kind of surprised that the brand did shades that are so close to each other. They're not exact. I think that Royal Treasure has more green, so it's more akin, and I think I remember doing comparisons to these, but it is It's very close. To me, it's a little too close to have in the next Multichrome palette, but that's just me. So for full disclosure, I think that when I did the comparison swatches for that last shade, Carina Nebula, my hand was still a little bit wet from removing the previous swatches. So that's why this hand was so intense. My hands are incredibly, incredibly dry. I'm a hairdresser and it's winter, you know? So I usually have my hands moisturized, but after a while, they're just over it. But since I had still had some moisture on this hand, all of those shades were more intense, which I think since they were all more intense, it's still a really good way to compare the two. All right, I think that that is it. So I hope that you enjoyed the swatches. Again, I don't feel like necessarily any of these shades were incredibly unique, but I do think that that little bit of extra sparkle and texture that some of these shades had really makes it, you know, kind of fun. So if you don't have a ton of single eyeshadows in your collection, like this girl does, it might not be a big deal to you. All right, thank you so much, lovelies. I hope you enjoyed the swatch party. I'll see you really soon.